It always begins in the same manner. She gazes at you, not for who you truly are, but as the person she envisions you could evolve into. Do you sense that flicker of hope in her eyes, or perhaps it's longing? You believe you're being truly seen, but in reality, you're being evaluated, analyzed, examined like an empty canvas, anticipating her to create her magnum opus. Yet, that magnum opus isn't you. It never truly existed. Carl Jung, however, cautioned you about this, not in the gentle tones of a motivational speaker, but with the incisive clarity of someone who dedicated his existence to exploring the psychological depths of the human soul. Jung spent his life endeavoring to chart what he referred to as the unconscious, the aspect of the mind that functions quietly beneath the surface of our awareness. Through his explorations, he uncovered a chilling truth about women. They do not merely fall in love with men, they become enamored with the idealized notions of them, with the fantasy itself. It all starts with projection. The most unsettling aspect is that many aren't even conscious of it. You may believe she's selecting you, but in reality, she is opting for the version of you that she has conjured in her imagination. A psychological marionette, crafted to fulfill a role in her personal narrative. When you no longer align with her script, she replaces the actor rather than altering the tale. Jung referred to this projection as the animus, the inner masculine archetype residing within every woman. If this animus remains immature, undeveloped, or unrestrained, it can turn into a tyrant. It becomes the invisible force that leads women to pursue harmful men while dismissing those who are genuinely good. It drives them to argue irrationally, to dominate without insight, and to impose moral judgments without taking responsibility. Jung was direct about this phenomenon. He characterized it as a form of spiritual possession, a moment when a woman becomes oblivious to the fact that she is no longer acting from her own awareness, but rather from the shadowy influence of an inner masculine fantasy. And what about men? You find yourself captivated by this illusion simply because no one ever taught you how to recognize it. You conflate being desired with being truly known. You confuse being chosen with being comprehended. You trust her when she tells you that you're different, while in truth, you're merely the latest actor in a play she's been rehearsing since childhood. When the fantasy shatters, when the facade falls away, you're left feeling bewildered, betrayed, and humiliated, questioning what you did wrong. Yet you haven't done anything wrong at all. You simply ceased to be a convincing performer in someone else's narrative. Jung cautioned that the only escape from this psychological drama lies in what he termed individuation, the lifelong journey towards achieving internal wholeness. And here's a harsh reality. Good men rarely embark on that journey. You've been conditioned to pursue approval, to seek validation, allowing others, particularly women, to determine your value. As long as this continues, you'll find yourself stuck in the same monotonous role, only to be replaced each time the audience loses interest. The journey of self-discovery is rarely glamorous. It's a harsh truth. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that you've kept hidden, the vulnerable, the insecure, the fractured. It challenges you to stop blaming women for overlooking you and encourages you to truly see yourself. Here's the insight that Jung possessed, which most men fail to grasp. Becoming a man doesn't happen by being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. Your value isn't determined by her affection. It's solidified by standing independently, fully aware, taking responsibility, and embracing life to the fullest. A man who has confronted his own subconscious cannot be swayed by external projections. He is no longer manipulated by someone else's dream. He has become the creator of his own existence. Jung noted that the deepest tragedy facing modern men isn't their rejection, but their tendency to reshape themselves into what they think will be accepted. You might call it compromise. You refer to it as partnership. You refer to it as love. Yet Jung offered a different label: self-betrayal. He cautioned that those men who overlook their own psychological growth risk becoming captives of feminine projections, molding themselves like soft clay into whatever forms are desired by women who may not even grasp their own authentic wishes. In the process, you cease to be truly masculine. You transform into mere facades. Smiling, nodding, agreeing and performing, until eventually you lose sight of who you were before donning that mask. And women, they can perceive this instinctively. Oh, their awareness is deeper than you might ever realize. The very traits you believe will win her heart, obedience, predictability, availability, become the reasons she starts to lose interest. Why is that? Because, as Jung articulated, the feminine instinct is not attracted to comfort. Instead, it seeks out mystery, risk, and the man she cannot completely define or control. The instant you reveal yourself fully, erasing boundaries and lacking a backbone, you don't become more appealing. You fade into the background. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. Yet here lies the paradox that traps so many men. Your fear of being alone overshadows your fear of living a lie. You would choose to lose yourself rather than risk losing her. You'd prefer to play a role than confront the frightening reality of standing in silence without applause. Yet, Jung taught that true freedom comes only when a man embraces his solitude. He stated that individuation is not for the faint of heart, as it demands you to undergo a kind of death before you can truly live. It asks you to let go of the false versions of yourself, allowing something authentic to finally emerge. But here's the hard truth that many hesitate to voice. Individuation is profoundly lonely, incredibly lonely. As you tread this path, you begin to perceive truths that cannot be unseen. You start to recognize the games people engage in, the masks they don, the lies they convince themselves of just to feel secure. When you attempt to reveal what you see, you often face ridicule. They label you as cold, arrogant, or overly serious. They point fingers and say, "You're the problem," yet you are not the issue. You are merely the mirror. And people despise the mirror when it reflects something they would rather not confront. Jung understood this concept deeply. He dedicated many years to studying patients who were afraid to confront their own shadows, the darker, rejected aspects of their psyche they refused to acknowledge. He pointed out that women, in particular, are often nurtured in societies that reward them for sidestepping this confrontation. Society tells them they are pure, emotional, intuitive, and whole, just as they are. However, Jung was skeptical of this notion. He noted that the greatest threat to women lies in their unconscious animus, the inner voice that speaks with misleading confidence, false authority, and a deceptive sense of moral superiority. He cautioned that if a woman does not confront and integrate this inner masculine force, she risks becoming a prisoner to it, projecting these unresolved issues onto every man she encounters, blaming them for a battle she refuses to engage within herself. And here you are, convinced you can save her, believing you'll be the exception, thinking that if you simply love her intensely enough, validate yourself loudly enough, and perform adequately, she will ultimately choose you for who you truly are. However, that's not the true nature of projection. Jung suggested that projection acts as a thief. It robs us of reality, substituting it with a mere illusion. Until both men and women awaken from this deception, they are doomed to relive the same tragedy repeatedly, each blaming the other while remaining unaware that they are merely engaging with phantoms. This leads to the most ironic twist of all. The woman who once viewed you as her hero may eventually come to see you as her adversary, not because you have changed, but because you failed to meet the fantasy she had constructed around you. Remarkably, she may not even recognize that she is doing this. Jung referred to this psychological betrayal as unavoidable when neither individual takes accountability for their own internal realities. You didn't deceive her or betray her trust. Instead, you let her down by not fulfilling the image of an idealized character that she subconsciously created. You were never that figure to begin with. This is why she holds resentment toward you. Not because of your imperfections, but because you couldn't meet the expectations of a role she never communicated to you. As Jung remarked, people will go to great lengths, no matter how irrational, to avoid confronting their own souls. Nowhere is this more evident than in romantic relationships. Men and women often enter these bonds not as complete beings, but as living projections, carrying along their unaddressed fears, unmet desires, and unresolved childhood traumas into the arms of someone they barely know. You may call it love. Jung referred to it as possession. Like someone caught in a hypnotic trance, you walk into this snare, convinced that this time will be different. But that's never the case. The most daunting question a man can pose to himself remains unasked. What if I am the architect of this recurring pattern? You may wish to cast blame on women, labeling them as manipulative, deceitful, or superficial. Yet Jung would gaze directly at you and inquire, why did you allow yourself to be chosen by her in the first place? The truth is, a man who shies away from acknowledging his own anima, his own inner feminine realm, is doomed to become a servant to hers. You are not merely a victim, you have acted as a volunteer. You opted to play the fool, taking on the role in her personal narrative. Confronting your own emptiness, your sense of incompleteness, was far more frightening than participating in someone else's fantasy. This is where many of you may stop listening, as this marks the end of comfort and the beginning of responsibility. Jung did not provide easy answers. He didn't lay out a simple three-step plan to achieve alpha male status. Instead, he presented you with the harsh, enduring challenge of self-exploration, of dwelling in the quiet corners of your own mind until the falsehoods begin to crumble, until the inner voice that insists you are nothing without her starts to fade away. And let there be no illusion, that voice will resist fiercely. It will insist that you rely on her, that you are incomplete in her absence, that no man can truly thrive without feminine affirmation. Yet Jung's insights suggest something far more profound. They hint that the man who can stand independently, without her, without seeking validation, without the need for applause, is the one who achieves true freedom. A freedom from projection, a release from performance, and liberation from being shaped by someone else's vision of masculinity. And when you arrive at that point, you don't turn cold or indifferent. Instead, you become genuine. You become deeply rooted, grounded, and fully alive within your own skin. Paradoxically, this is when women will feel most attracted to you, not because you crave their company, but because you don't depend on them. You'll wear a smile not out of heartlessness, but because you finally grasp the truth. You recognize that she, too, is on her own journey. She must confront her own inner struggles. She must awaken from her own delusions. You cannot do that work for her. You cannot rescue her from herself. All you can do is follow the example set by Jung. You can walk your own path with such courage that you become a living mirror, reflecting the truth back to anyone brave enough to look. Most will turn their backs. However, a select few, a rare minority, will express their gratitude. And therein lies the distinction between being admired for the mask you wear and being respected for the person you have become. When that pivotal moment arrives, when you finally understand that there's no longer a need for performance, you'll begin to observe something unusual. You'll realize how uneasy people become in your presence. Even if they can't articulate it, they will sense the shift. The weight of your authenticity will disturb them, as you no longer conform to the familiar categories that provide them a sense of security. Jung cautioned that the individualized man is often shunned by society. He is feared and misunderstood, branded as aloof or arrogant. Yet the underlying truth is even more unsettling. You have ascended to a state of being untouchable, unpurchasable, and unmanageable because you have seen through the facade of the game. And this is where it starts to get amusing. The very individuals who once clamored for your attention, your validation, your approval, will begin to harbor resentment toward you for no longer needing theirs. Women, especially those who are still caught up in the illusion of the perfect man, will label you as emotionally unavailable. They might claim you are too cerebral, overly analytical, or too detached. What they truly mean is that they've lost their ability to manipulate you. You've exited the limelight. You've stopped following their script. Now, without that script, they find themselves at a loss as to how to engage with you. You've transitioned from being merely a character to becoming a genuine man. Jung once quipped that the gods have become ailments. What ancient societies deemed divine possession, contemporary psychology refers to as neurosis. And let's be clear, men who seek validation are among the most spiritually unwell. You might think you're expressing romance when you declare sentiments like, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." However, Jung would likely disagree and suggest that what you refer to as love is, in reality, an avoidance of shouldering your own soul. It's far simpler to place that burden onto a woman, making her the vessel for your hopes, your meaning, and your sense of purpose. After all, if she bears that weight, you are relieved of the responsibility. But here comes the harsh reality. The moment she realizes she was never meant to bear your soul, she will let it go. She has to let it go, because no woman, no matter how nurturing, can carry the burden of a man who refuses to take responsibility for himself. When she finally releases it, you may feel a sense of betrayal. But in truth, you shouldn't. You ought to express gratitude, because in that instant, as the illusion shatters, you come face to face with reality. The journey of becoming a true man was never meant to be hers, it has always been yours. And in that raw moment of insight, you are faced with two options. You can shift the blame onto her. You can allow bitterness to seep in. You can align yourself with the bitter chorus of men who cast blame on women, mocking and resenting them, forsaking them like cowards too afraid to confront their own void. Or you can choose the path Jung would urge you to take. You can turn your gaze inward. You can embark on the solitary, daunting, yet liberating journey of individuation, of becoming whole without seeking someone else to fulfill you. The reality is that the woman you're seeking is actually a reflection of a part of yourself that you've left behind. Until you confront that aspect, every relationship will merely be an act. Every bond will feel transactional, and every experience of love will be disingenuous. However, once you choose to confront it, once you embrace your own anima, your inner feminine essence, you will transform into a man who no longer finds it necessary to pursue women. You won't chase after them, nor will you manipulate or put on a show for them. Instead, you will remain grounded, fully connected to your true self. From that moment on, something extraordinary occurs. You stop drawing in women who seek a mere facade. Instead, you begin to attract those who desire authenticity. You'll recognize this shift when it happens, as she won't pressure you to put on a show. She won't attempt to rewrite your story. She won't become enamored with an idealized version of you. Instead, she will stand before you, genuine and unadorned, not as a deity seeking adoration, but as a fellow human eager to navigate her own journey alongside you. No masks, no pretenses, no games. When you encounter her, the genuine her, not an illusion, you'll notice the difference right away. She won't overwhelm you with grand proclamations. She won't see you as the missing piece of her life's puzzle. She won't entice you with promises of fulfillment, because she isn't searching for completion. She doesn't seek salvation. She has done her inner work. She has faced her own shadows and confronted her inner self. She has let go of her illusions. This is why she won't expect you to perform. She won't require you to carry her spirit. Instead, she stands before you, whole and complete, meeting your gaze with sincerity. Not as someone she wishes to reshape, but as someone she is finally ready to connect with. In this connection, there's no sense of urgency. There's no grasping. There's no pretense. There is simply authenticity. And this authenticity, as Jung taught, is the rarest and most profound form of love, a love that asks for nothing yet gives everything. It emerges not from a place of need, but from a space of freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to turn away, freedom to unite without delusions, without facades, without fear, but allow me to offer a cautionary note. Most of you will probably never know this experience. The reason is simple. Many will give up long before reaching that point. You might settle for mediocrity. You might cling to illusions. You may find a fleeting excitement in being recognized as someone you're not. The truth of who you are may still feel too daunting to confront. However, if you possess the bravery, raw and heart-wrenching courage to keep moving forward, to endure solitude, and to peel away every false facade you've constructed for the sake of approval, you will ultimately find yourself perched at the brink of something incredibly beautiful and frightening. You will discover your true self. And when that moment arrives, women will no longer define your identity. They will cease to be the reflection you rely on to affirm your masculinity. Instead, they will become something entirely different. Partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not mothers. Allies, not saviors. You will cherish them not out of necessity, but by choice, chosen from a foundation of strength, wholeness, and a clear understanding of who you are without any need for justification. Carl Jung didn't leave you a roadmap to follow. Instead, he issued a cautionary tale. A caution that any man who shies away from self-examination will find himself a captive to the projections others place upon him, particularly those from women. Yet Jung also extended a challenge to embark on the journey of individuation, to cease blaming women for the roles you willingly adopt, to stop searching for completeness in another's reflection, to end the waiting to be selected. For the man who fully, unapologetically, and relentlessly chooses himself becomes ungovernable by illusion. He remains impervious to manipulation through theatrics. He can no longer be merely a character in someone else's narrative. Instead, he claims the pen to write his own story. And if you've come this far, if you felt a resonance with this message, don't just move on. Don't let this be something you encounter and forget. Take a moment right now to appreciate this video and share it with another man who may need to hear these truths. Your support is not just for us, it's for the next man still caught in the illusion, waiting for liberation. Help us disseminate this message. The time to awaken is now.